Pretty bombshell story has been making waves here in D.C., released by Axios. Let's throw that up there on the screen, which is that Axios unveiled a Chinese spy ring which targeted California politicians. Now, the person in charge is a Chinese national. Her name was Fang or Christine Fang, who came up from 2011 to 2015. She was a student at the University of Berkeley. Now, during that time, she cultivated relationships with a lot of different California politicians, including one Eric Swalwell. And according to the FBI, I'm not talking about Swalwell here, she developed a sexual relationship with two different Midwestern mayors, developed political intelligence, fundraised basically straw donation money for a lot of different candidates, and set up a nice little influence operation before the FBI flagged her. And what everybody is picking up on is that Eric Swalwell, of course, and her have appeared in photos together. She raised money for her. Apparently, she also raised money for Ro Khanna during one of his successful bids.
I think she volunteered reportedly
for one of his
Ro Khanna
campaigns. And this is what these people do. They insert themselves into party. They try and get to know everybody, and in many cases like Maria Butina and all of that. But what's funny about all of this is that Swalwell himself is exactly the type of politician who would have used this against somebody else and to say, see, the Russia. I mean, he based his entire presidential campaign on Russian infiltration, and he actually appeared on this show a couple of years ago with you, in order to make such of these accusations. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Over the past 2 years, our country has seen just an influx of Russians into our political bloodstream, and that's something that did not exist until Donald Trump came on the scene.
I mean, that's just kind of funny in order to see that. My friend Chuck Ross, let's throw this up there on the screen, about what he was reacting. Or it was like a Chinese spy cozied up to him, raised money for him, and planted an intern in his congressional office. And this is just something that we've actually seen as a problem. And we had Dianne Feinstein, one of her drivers, also was linked to a Chinese spy. And these are things which, again, we're not alleging a grand Chinese conspiracy in order to control Joe Biden and all of this. But yeah, there was a spy here that was involved, and it very equally fits some of the things that they were alleging about Russiagate.
Well, and one of the things, the story is fantastic from Axios.
Really
a lot of really interesting details here, just in terms of the way that this influence operation was executed. And they have this statement in here that basically, look, this is an insight into this one woman, but there were many more. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the number of operatives who were sent here to ingratiate themselves with politicians like Swalwell. Of the California politicians, it seems like she had the most success with Swalwell in terms of she bundled a ton of money for him. They did do an investigation and didn't find that any of that fundraising was illegal, but she bundled tons of money for him. She's at all these different events. There are multiple pictures of her with him. And then maybe most troubling, she was able to place an intern with him on either, I don't know if it was his office or his campaign. So that's troubling. And then, she made a practice of going to these mayors' conferences and ended up having sexual relations with two Midwestern mayors.
That's what Maria Butina did at all these gun shows.
One of those, by the way, was caught, the FBI had actually wired this car and caught the encounter on camera. So, and then Swalwell is ultimately notified that by the FBI somewhere around 2015 of what's going on. He cut off all ties to her. I want to be fair to him. As soon as he found out from the FBI, this is what's happening, he's like, okay, well, we're not going to have any interaction with her anymore. But this is kind of funny to me. So he's defending himself, saying basically, the reason that this is coming out now is because of my aggressive criticism of Donald Trump. They're trying to hurt and embarrass me. I mean, that's probably true. I could definitely buy that the story was planted by people who are like, come on, this guy was all out there running around about the Russia stuff, and he had a Chinese spy planted in his circle and planting interns on his own campaign.
But why now, though?
But
that would have come out now.
Also, what's good for the good? I mean, he was happy to use these same types of stories against Donald Trump in the same way. So, this is how this operates. And it doesn't mean that this wasn't true.
Don't throw stones if you've got problems in your own house, man. Which is going all in on these things and fanning ridiculous conspiracy theories for years and years and years makes you look like an idiot whenever you get caught. And I don't blame the guy. I mean, it probably happens to a lot of politicians, and everybody should have better judgment, especially if you're in politics and around foreign nationals.
There's no way to know.
No, that's
honestly.
what I mean. I do not blame this person.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, he was like a young if somebody wants to raise money for you, one of your politicians, you're probably like, yeah, go ahead.
Sure,
right?
do it.
Or get an intern, volunteer. These things mean a lot when you're on a small scale campaign. Was he a willing, actor? No. But in Swalwell's terms, was he a useful idiot? Should we start throwing around many of the things that he talked about? But for real, I think your general point, which is one that I want people to take away, is this is the tip of the iceberg. There's an entire unit in the FBI that talks about this. I recently read a book, which I want to recommend. It's called The Scientist and the Spy, of the true story of China, the FBI, and industrial espionage, which stemmed from a Midwestern cop stopping a car full of Chinese nationals in the middle of Iowa who were going through and stealing corn seeds so that they could genetically engineer them for a Chinese company and grow like U.S. grain in China. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar operation. This person was involved with Xi Jinping all the way up to the top and all that. Again, this was 2013 stuff. This is old. We only just really learned about it. I can't even imagine what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, the real story here is the hypocrisy. Because, look, there was no way for Swalwell to know that there was anything fishy here. Someone wants to bundle money for you. You're in politics. You're likely to say yes. You're not going to investigate every single person who comes across your path. But you can just imagine if the shoe was on the other foot.
Oh, yeah.
And this story came out about a Republican and, a Russian spy that was involved, the Maria Butina stuff. You can imagine the way that it would be, blown up by the media, that the flames of it would be fanned by Swalwell. All sorts of, not just, hey, this person kind of, happened to affiliate with this foreign spy through no fault of their own. It would be made into nefarious, they must have known what was going on here and what are they doing now for the Russians, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a little bit of hypocrisy here, I would say.
100%.
All right, more Rising for you after this.